Dr. Hanisha here. Thank you so much for joining me on my new podcast, Mahan Health with Dr. Hanisha. Mahan literally translates to great in Sanskrit, and to me, it makes no sense but to have the absolute best when it comes to your health. My goal is by you listening or watching this podcast, you're getting one step closer to achieving Mahan or great health for yourself. In today's episode, I interview my good friend and colleague, Dr. Griffin McMath. She is the ambassador of the Institute of Natural Medicine, and I thought there was no one better to interview for what naturopathic medicine really is than her. So she is actually a licensed naturopathic doctor and the graduate of Bastyr University, California, which is also where I graduated from. She did her undergraduate work at Central Michigan University, where she studied anthropology and solidified her desire to help those in need. Regardless of their cultural or religious beliefs and socioeconomic status, Dr. Griffin McMath knew she needed to be equipped with training that could provide her with the expertise and creativity to meet and treat a person wherever they are at any moment. Like many NDs or naturopathic doctors will say, before she knew naturopathic medicine even existed, her values regarding the therapeutic order and healing were parallel to the principles of the profession she is now so invested in today. Her trailblazing nature was nurtured during naturopathic medical school through various policy, advocacy, and public awareness initiatives. She served as the first student on the board of directors at the California Naturopathic Doctors Association, carrying internships with Bastyr Center for Health Policy and Leadership, as well as the Integrative Health Policy Consortium, and eventually traveled to Geneva as the first naturopathic medical student to attend the World Health Organization's annual World Health Assembly. Her passion for global health led her to Nicaragua, with the Natural Doctors International as an ND student, and recently joined the Communications Committee for the World Naturopathic Federation. Within the U.S., Dr. McMath's efforts are focused within the Professional Education and Media Affairs Committee of the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians, and serves as the chair of the Public Relations Committee at ONC-AMP, as well as their board of directors. After graduating, Dr. McMath moved to the DMV area and joined the Maryland Proton Treatment Center as the program administrator of Integrative Wellness. In collaboration with the University of Maryland Center for Integrative Medicine and the University of Maryland Radiation Oncology Department, Dr. McMath helped spearhead the creation of a new model of integrative care for people with cancer and their support networks. Dr. McMath and her colleagues were published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine special issue on integrative oncology in regards to their patient-centered collaborative model. Building on her passion to promote access to and advancement of naturopathic medicine, Dr. McMath left the Mid-Atlantic for Seattle, Washington, to work for the Institute of Natural Medicine. From Seattle, she leads grassroots public awareness programs for naturopathic medicine in collaboration with other stakeholder organizations. She works to empower the naturopathic medical community with the resources and training to build meaningful relationships with the public and their local communities in a personal way. Needless to say, she's an incredibly amazing woman who has a great resume. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. McMath and her road to ND, check out her story at the AANMC. So in this podcast, we actually talk about what naturopathic medicine is, what it entails, and the rigorous process that it actually takes to become a naturopathic doctor. So a lot of people have common misconceptions on what it really is, and a lot of people just don't know what we really go through as naturopathic doctors. So I thought she would be the perfect person to interview so that we can get a more in-depth analysis and understanding of what a naturopathic doctor really does and what naturopathic medicine really is. So I hope you all enjoy the show, and please leave your comments below, and I'll see you at the end. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here, and I feel like you're the best representation of what naturopathic medicine is, and I'm so happy that you're here doing the interview with me.
Thank you. I'm very flattered and honored to represent my esteemed colleagues in whatever way I can.
Awesome. Great. So getting right into it, what is naturopathic medicine?
Naturopathic medicine is a distinct system of primary health care. So it is an art, a science. We are unique with our different diagnosing methods sometimes, and definitely with our treatment. We stand apart from allopathic or conventional medicine as well as osteopathic medicine because of the principles of naturopathic medicine, which are about 6 or 7 depending on who you ask. And those principles, though we've had them for hundreds of years, have actually stood the test of time because they're always flexible to cutting edge technologies and the latest and greatest that science has to offer. So naturopathic medicine is probably one of the most effective and sustainable methods of preventative primary health care that we have today.
Thank you for that. So what drew you personally to naturopathic medicine?
Yes, besides being the child nurse in our family growing up and my parents knowing that I was probably definitely going to go into a career path or vocation that took care of the whole person, I studied medical anthropology in college and recognized that one system, one perspective, one kind of prescriptive attitude did not suit every person from a variety of backgrounds. And I knew I wanted to be the kind of physician that could support or be of healing guidance to anyone, anywhere, with as little tools as possible. So I wanted to be able to be picked up, taken anywhere in the world, and then just dropped and say, okay, if you're needed, could you help? And naturopathic medicine gave me the widest tool belt that I could see when I was looking at different medical educations and the way that I wanted to be able to practice. Some people do want to be able to pick up a scalpel or help in an emergency situation where something that I'm not going to do every day, and that's great for them. For me, I knew I wanted to be able to give someone the tool set to empower them to be their own healer in a way, and naturopathic medicine gives me that tool belt.
I like that. I feel like I remember seeing a picture of you from when you were younger, like a stethoscope, and I have that same picture also. Yes. So I feel like we have very similar stories.
I do. I kept that photo within my journal or my purse throughout medical school occasionally, and sometimes in my fridge, come on, you can do it. And the scrubs that I had, it's like I was maybe 3 years old, and for some reason I had my church shoes on with frilly socks, and I'm pretty sure that physicians aren't wearing that in the hospital these days, but it said MD, and I remember looking at it and going, close. We were one letter off, but yeah, definitely long time coming.
Yeah, that's great. I remember seeing that, and I was just like, I love that, because I have a very similar picture. And for those of you who have followed me, or if you are interested in my story, listen to the first video that I have, and I talk about a very similar story where it kind of started from the beginning.
Yeah,
and I love that.
And I think too, I talk to my colleagues, and I know we've talked about this before too, just how I was a little bit of a different kid and a little bit of a different adolescent and young adult, in that when I was a kid and I was trying to be a nurse or be my little family doctor, I was the kid who went outside in the back and found an aloe plant and was trying to make my own medicine, or telling my mom that we needed to start our own garden and eat our own food, and we were constantly outdoors. And these values that I had within my family and with taking care of myself, it was a no-brainer to me. That was medicine. That was healing, because it was a healing lifestyle. So why not prevent? So I think there was these attitudes that were also really pervasive. And then when I found naturopathic medicine, so much just clicked. I thought, it just makes sense. I don't know what else to say. And so, my parents kind of saw me as a kid who were like, what is she doing back there? I'm like, don't eat it. Or don't put that on your skin, to my older sister. But I was, now, thankfully, when I play with plants in a lab, or I'm putting together different recipes, my parents definitely want to test it out. Or, I have medical license now, so it's okay. We've come a very long way since that photo was
A little bit
taken.
more legitimate.
Yeah.
Speaking of legitimate,
Mhm.
what is the education, training, licensing? What is the whole process behind becoming a naturopathic doctor?
Yes. Okay. So very, very key that you bring this up. I'm really glad that you brought this up because since we are a profession on the rise, rapidly growing, really excited about that. We're constantly focusing on consumer awareness, on safety of seeing someone who is a licensed naturopathic doctor or naturopathic physician, depending on the state, or registered. In some states, they do registration. But this concept is rather than seeing when you go to find an ND, there's naturopath and naturopathic doctor, which I think we'll talk about later. But the really important thing is that naturopathic doctors, naturopathic physicians receive. I shouldn't say receive because they definitely earn that. They go out and get a 4-year accredited naturopathic medical education. It is science-based. There is the similar didactic training. You're in the lecture. The curriculum being science-based, and then your clinical education on top of that is thousands of hours in addition to that. So you have your education that's similar to medical doctors, MDs, or doctors of osteopathic medicine, DOs. NDs are the third other form of accredited medical education in the United States. All three of those accrediting bodies are accredited by or connected to the Department of Education through the United States government. So we have what's called the CNME, or Council on Naturopathic Medical Education. MDs have LCME, and DOs have COCA or COCA. So we are the third in that party, and all of the naturopathic medical schools are thereby regionally accredited within CNME. So it's kind of a long umbrella, but I do make a point to throw out these abbreviations so you can see there's a very thoughtful and very rigorous process to go through to become that. So that's our education or how we're accredited. Similar to other forms of medical education, we learn all of the basic sciences. We have to do so much biochemistry, which just makes me shiver going back to that. That was not. I know that's you. I had to work a little bit harder in that category, but
I love it.
we had we had a cadaver lab. We studied anatomy and physiology, all of those basic sciences. The first year is you look at what is the body doing when it's right, when it's in balance. What does our basic function look like? The second year is what happens when the body is in some kind of disarray or imbalance, and that's where we start getting into a little bit more of the other ologies, as you will, and also when we start to learn forms of assessment, diagnosis, and treatment. We do start our clinical education from day one, right off the bat, with clinical observation, and then you build upon whatever skills your didactic training is providing with you at the same time. We also have, in addition to all of our clinical training, which are in the academic clinics at each of the schools, we are enforced to do our preceptorship, which is essentially a clinical mentorship throughout our medical training. And that's where we can really curate the kind of physician that we want to be. We're not just allocated different shifts. We get to go out within the community and find naturopathic physicians, medical doctors, doctors of osteopathic medicine to say, hey, I want to be mentored by you, to experience what you offer to your patients, to kind of specialize my training in some sort of way. So that is a really unique part of naturopathic medical education. And then I would say something that makes it a little bit different too, as far as our education goes, is we take really take it very seriously that before we give something to a patient or ask something of a patient to join us, because that was the other part of naturopathic medicine, it's a very empowering form of medicine and philosophy. We try it ourselves. So all of our botanical medicine labs, all of our physical medicine labs, or hydrotherapy, you can be sure that that naturopathic doctor, that naturopathic physician has tried that at one point or another. And we could not ever prescribe something or give a botanical formula, a tincture, a tea, or have said, go do constitutional hydrotherapy without having experienced it ourselves. And that even goes to a blood draw. We had an entire year in our training, or 2 hours every single week. We were taking each other's blood, learning how to give shots. We had to know how to approach someone, even our counseling shifts. So I, again, draw that point out because our education is so interactive. We learn by also doing, which helps us become doctor as teacher even more effectively. So that's our education and our training. We then take our NPLEX exams, or the naturopathic physicians licensing examinations. There are 2 steps to those, similar to our conventional colleagues, that we typically take about halfway through, all the basic sciences, and then your clinical sciences after you've graduated through your program, your training. And then after that, it makes you eligible to apply for a license or registration in whatever state you are in, so that you can be a licensed naturopathic doctor, very key. And then your scope is outlined by whatever state you're in. And then sometimes that we have a more full, or what I like to call modernized scope, where our scope reflects the extent of our training. And then other states may be a little bit more restricted because of whatever factor that may be.
Yeah, and I feel like that was a really good representation of our entire training. I mean, you put it all together. Yeah, you put it all together. I mean, that was pretty much everything that we go through. But I like that you talked about how we do practice what we preach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we live the medicine. And I feel like that is definitely something that's unique to our profession. I remember even whenever I was interviewing for DO schools and MD schools, I saw the difference in what foods they offered.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw the Mediterranean foods with the green juices at the naturopathic schools, and then there was like pizza and pop at the DO schools, you know. And so it was just like I knew then, I was like, this is about the journey.
Yeah, you know, and not that we don't get down with pizza, because let me tell you, there's still some Ben and Jerry's nights. So and we have colleagues, you know, that are right there with us, and eating chia seeds, all this stuff. But that was the other thing that I think drew me, was when I started filling out applications for medical school in general. I started, and just what was asked of us on the application forms themselves, something didn't resonate with me. Not that it wouldn't for someone else, but the questions that I was asked, the essays, really so thought-provoking, and resonated with me there. And then one last fact, because I think this is important to mention as far as licensing goes. Anyone who wants to get a medical license in a state has to go through a background check. They have to go through all these different processes. You have to have different references. You have to provide your transcripts, a copy of your NPLEX examination scores, and then those licensing boards sometimes are the same licensing boards as our other allied health professionals or MDs or DOs. So those, again, have a very rigorous system set up with checks and balances as well. So
yes, it's definitely a rigorous process.
And it takes some time.
It takes a lot of time. Okay, moving on to the next question. Do MDs prescribe medications or drugs?
Well, absolutely. And that yes, we are trained to. Primary care physicians are trained to be able to prescribe a variety of medications. Our training goes anything from antibiotics, over-the-counter medications. We're even trained in chemotherapeutics. Not that we prescribe that, but you have to understand what a patient is on, especially if you need to wean them off. Not always just add something on to their regimen, but if you need to wean them off. That being said, naturopathic doctors, naturopathic physicians follow what we call the therapeutic order. So, medicine across the board over the last couple of decades has faced some scrutiny for just prescribing at the first sign or symptom and saying, oh, well, boom, this is what you get. And thankfully, that's changing across the board slowly but surely, but naturopathic medicine has always been that way. We've been the way to say, no, you don't need something necessarily right away. We follow a therapeutic order. We try to remove obstacles to whatever is happening first. Like, let's pull away something that might be harming you, build up your body's natural ability to resolve this imbalance in one way or another, and then start implementing maybe natural substances that change what's happening or maybe relieve a symptom. And then we step up to, okay, is there a pharmaceutical or a synthetic substance that is appropriate this time? So we don't jump to it. There are several other steps before we prescribe pharmaceuticals or synthetic substances. Or if we need to even refer out because maybe something isn't within our scope, and we absolutely do refer out. So we do if our scope in that state is modernized enough to recognize that. And it's really crucial that we do have those prescriptive rights, especially if someone needs an antibiotic. If they do, we know that those are definitely overprescribed right now. So we have that training. We have the training to recognize if someone is on too many medications and when to wean them off. We have the very, very unique training, and I'm really glad that you asked this because we are, I would say, one of the leaders, if not the leader in the field on nutrient and drug interactions and drug to herb or botanical interactions. That is part of our training from, a day one, maybe a second year, but it is a really big part of our curriculum and training that now that consumers and industry are really demanding many more natural therapies, if they're alongside something else, we know how to manage those or co-manage or pull you away or saying, oh, you've been on this, reflux medication for this many years. Oh my goodness, you are most definitely at risk of depletion of these kinds of nutrients. And that's something really crucial too, because those have adverse effects on your health. So yes, we can when it's appropriate. And if you are on them, we know how to co-manage alongside your natural integrative therapies, and then when to wean you off as well. And when to refer you out when something is not within our scope.
Exactly. I feel like that's all extremely important. And whenever you talk about the herb drug interactions or mineral drug interactions, nutrient drug interactions, I feel like there's a common misconception that anything that's natural is just safe.
Oh.
and that is something where we really, I feel like we excel in.
Yes.
In understanding, like, no, this natural substance with what you're taking right now is not necessarily safe, or just for you and your constitution, this isn't the best herb for you, right?
Yeah.
This may not work for you, or this may be harmful at worst.
Absolutely. And you have, and it's, I love about natural medicine is that it is so accessible and that someone can grow it at home or they can access it in a variety of other ways. I think the challenge with that, which is why we see certain levels of government, whether local or much larger, kind of struggle with, okay, how do we make this safe? And one of the ways is to go see a naturopathic doctor, because we have wellness influencers who are maybe sponsored by companies, and where are people getting their information? I say the best thing to do is to consult a naturopathic doctor.
I agree. All right. My next question is, do NDs expect you to make big life changes? And what if, this is a question I get so often from, friends, family, potential clients, or patients. Everyone's just a little afraid to come see an ND because they're like, I'm not ready to change my life. I'm not ready to change my diet. So what do you have to say with that?
Oh my gosh. I think that it's day one of me starting medical school. I think my parents thought, oh boy, here we go. Like, we're just going to hear it every holiday, like all the things we need to be doing. And that definitely happened a little bit. Don't get me wrong. But you learn, naturopathic doctors believe that you should meet the patient where they're at.
Yes.
Just one more time, let that one sit in. Meet the patient where they're at.
Yes.
And, we're trained in the theory of change, the stages of change as well, so we can assess where someone is at. Are they even considering a change? Do they see the benefit? Are they ready? Or are they wanting to, there's so many different steps within psychology as well, so upper level thinking there. But no, we we don't, I mean, aside from meeting the patient where they're at, sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest of differences. And, you know, making sure that someone doesn't have a treatment plan that's 3 pages long, is going to take someone thousands of dollars to implement, or a sudden life change, that is so stressful. So we are able to tweak minor lifestyle changes that make a big difference and then help someone build upon that. Because really what we're doing, in addition to removing obstacles to health, is we're starting to pave a path that is sustainable, that resonates with that person's life values. Because the other thing too is sometimes, for me, I think about the changes that I want to make, and there are some non-negotiables. And I just know, I know my life could be better from someone else's perspective if I did X, Y, and Z, but this is actually maybe a tradition or a treat or something that I don't mind, and this enhances my quality of life in a different way. And that's also where naturopathic doctors can help you evaluate and review those values and what's important to you, and what kind of life and what kind of health do you want to build. So yes, we meet the patient where they're at. We don't, or we shouldn't, sit there and dump a lot of drastic life changes, unless sometimes they're really relevant. If the patient says, I need to make these changes, or I'm ready, or there's a really critical, urgent need to make a big change, then we will, but we'll always make sure that the person has the support, resources, and network to uphold that kind of change. But again, that's when we've assessed a therapeutic order and go, it's time, this needs to happen.
But even then, I feel like that just all stems down to meeting the patient where they're at.
Exactly.
So if that's where they're at, that's where we'll meet them.
Yeah, and actually, I think you and I had this conversation the other day, that sometimes when people see naturopathic doctors or anyone who specializes in lifestyle health, wellness medicine, they think, I'm not in a good financial place, or, oh, I'm so busy right now, or, oh, I'm so stressed out, I'm just not ready to meet with one of you. And I think, that's interesting, and I would like to challenge that perspective, because that's actually when you do dig in. When you need that extra hand, you're so stressed out, or maybe you're strapped for cash, and we start making these choices. When we're strapped for cash, we start eating really, really low nutrient-dense foods. Our mood goes down. We have all these different stressors, which actually compound the issue and make it worse. When we are so busy or we're really stressed, we start making other choices. And if we knew and we had these other coping mechanisms incorporated in our life, that's the time when you really do seek us out. Not always when you're feeling great. Let us enter your life when you are having a tough time, because we can alleviate that. And because we do meet the patient where we're at, we know, or where they're at, not where we're at, where they're at, we know how to support you.
Definitely. I agree. Yeah. And going along with that too, one of my main things is working with those stressors, what is going on. And I really do my best to work with you and be like, okay, this is a stressor in your life. Let's work with it. Let's do some stress management techniques. Let's figure things out that we can do that work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay. So the last question I'm going to ask for today, before I get into some of the quick rapid fire questions, is how should someone choose an ND? How do we decide which naturopathic doctor to see?
Yes. Okay, so the first step is to make sure you're seeing a licensed or registered naturopathic doctor or physician. And that goes back to the points that I made earlier. But additionally, you want to make sure you're seeing an ND who's graduated from one of these CNME or AANMC schools. And you can go to aanmc.org to see the list of those schools, and then ask the person you're seeing, did you graduate from one of these schools? Did you pass your NCLEX exams? Rather than seeing what we call a naturopath. And that isn't to dismantle what they have to offer to the general public, but we are the only naturopathic practitioners who are trained to assess, diagnose, and treat with a license to practice naturopathic medicine. So that's really key for consumer safety, to make sure that you're aware. And then after that, I always like to say that finding a doctor, finding a mechanic even, it's like dating. Sometimes you find a naturopathic doctor that you resonate with because they use a couple of different tools on their tool belt from their education that are really the modalities that you resonate with the most or you can incorporate most easily into your life. And sometimes it's just like we've all seen a therapist. Like, yes, this person gets it, or they understand. I resonate with them. I vibe well with them. And then sometimes we go to someone and we think, I don't know if I want to share my personal story with you, and that can happen with anyone. So I like to say, first make sure they're an ND, and that they're licensed and they've been to that school, and then find someone who has the tool belt that you can, or uses certain modalities that make sense to you, and then someone that provides that healing space. We do often have longer visits, so I think that makes it a little bit easier to go see an ND in the first place. But you may just have to ask questions, and so many offer maybe 15-minute free phone calls to see if you'd have a great relationship, because we want to make sure that you're being set up for success and that the relationship is going to be one that serves as a great foundation for you to, like I said, build the health that you want.
Yeah, I think that is so important, the concept of being your doctor.
Yeah.
I feel like that is so important, and I know I offer this, and I know a lot of naturopathic doctors do offer like a 15-minute free consultation to see if I'm even a good fit for you.
Yeah.
To see if we're a good fit for you, because the goal is for you to get healthy. The goal is for you to feel better and reach your health goals, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that is a really big part of it, and I know I personally thought, like you said, with the therapist, I had a really great therapist that I worked with in San Diego, and now being here in DC, I think about it and I'm like, I'm like, can I meet with someone before I pay $100 and some to see this therapist? Because what if they aren't a good fit for me? And so I do think that is really important to figure out who works for you, because like you said, every single field, there's whatever it is, whether it's a mechanic or your medical doctor or whatever, like you need to find someone that works for you.
And sometimes, maybe you really are just seeking a naturopathic doctor for a specific condition, or it's just a certain time of your life, or maybe you do want someone who's going to be your primary care physician. At naturemed.org, there's a Find an ND tool, as well as naturopathic.org. There's a Find an ND tool, and it breaks it down by location, conditions they treat, sometimes modalities that they utilize. And I should also say that not every state can NDs serve right now as a primary care physician. So in some states, you may need to see an ND and still maintain a primary care physician for certain aspects of your healthcare if needed. But those two websites will also offer you a directory to find.
Those are great resources, and I will put that in the show notes so that everyone has that as well. Okay, so getting into the more personal rapid fire questions.
All right, what do you want to know? Here we go.
All right, so this podcast is about Mahan Health.
Okay.
And we talked about Mahan Health meaning great health. So what does Mahan Health mean to you?
Great health means I am living a life of abundance, no matter what deck of cards I have holding with me at that moment. Even if I don't feel well necessarily, or I'm sneezing or having a runny nose, that I'm operating from a really full mind and open mind, a full heart, and hopefully a really calm tummy. That's really one of my areas there. So great health means finding peace and contentment as much as possible, no matter what I'm going through.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right. What was the most difficult health change for you to make personally?
Oh my goodness. I think maybe sleep hygiene, quite honestly. Sleep hygiene, or maybe removing certain grains from my diet. Whew, that was a tough one. But I think most notably, it's sleep hygiene. It is making sure I honor that is one of the best ways to rest, recover, and rejuvenate every single day. So if we realized every single day I have a chance to recharge completely. What is that? And I still don't do it really well. So I would say that one's tough. And the more that I've taught patients and the more I've tried different things at home, that's become something that I am a little bit more compliant and hold myself accountable to.
Great. Would that be something that you're still working on, or
100%? There are so many lifestyle changes that it's not like flipping a switch and you're like, check, did that. No, there are certain grains that I don't eat, and I walk by a window at a bakery someday, and I go, okay, I can either choose to eat that and be really happy initially, and then feel not so great later. And the same thing with sleep. It's a my relationship with my health is a relationship with myself. And that's, as we know, in any kind of relationship, that's not static. It is a constant, there's a dynamic to it that is ever changing. So as long as I'm honest with myself about that, then I can give myself the support and mercy to.
And then the last one, this is a little bit more towards you because you've done a lot of work with policy and legislation. So what health policy, if you had the ability to just change something with the snap of your fingers, like you had your wand, your magic wand, and you could just change a policy, what health policy would that be?
All states licensed for naturopathic medicine. Okay, besides that, I truly would. And we're sitting here staring at the Capitol right now, and we're just like, let's go. Like looking around, and I haven't.
Can I just mention how naturopathic this is right now? We're sitting outside in the grass, and I love that we're here in the Capitol. It's so just like very representative.
The concrete stops. We're like, that grass looks real good. Yes. Surrounded by trees and the birds that you can hear. One with nature. No, I think, I thought about this a few times, and because I want to snap my finger and list off. There's like 30 laws that I can think of that are coming behind my finger really strongly right now. But I think that one of the biggest ones would probably be Medicare inclusion. That would change so much in helping us get more residencies funded. Residencies are, I never said this before, but residencies are an option right now for naturopathic medical students or graduates. It would change so much. It would ensure such better access. It would, I don't even know, like we talk about the VA. I mean, Medicare would be such a pivotal stone for us to have, or policy. So that would be it. I think there are other things like the Prevention and Public Health Fund, things like that I would like us to be incorporated in. But
you can only change one.
I can only change one. I know. That's like, let's go to a restaurant and ask me to order dinner. I'm like, well,
a little bit of everything.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate it.
I really appreciate you being here. This was great, and I hope this was informative for everyone. Yeah. I feel like I learned some new things, and I'm part of this profession, and I've been practicing, and so I love it. I love these discussions because we get to learn something new every time.
And just maybe a different perspective to take. So I think the thought I'll leave is that the Institute for Natural Medicine, or INM, helps with a lot of questions like these. And so for all of your audience and your patients and your clients, I recommend people go to naturemed.org/F as in Frank, A as in Apple, Q as in quiet, I don't know, which I am not, S. So FAQs for a lot of frequently asked questions about naturopathic medicine and some very unified, simple language for you to understand about a variety of questions like this and others. So thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Episode and now have a better understanding of what naturopathic medicine is and what we do as naturopathic doctors. Well, that's all I got for you all today. Wishing you all Mahan health and happiness, and I'll see you next time.